I am a Grace Ambassador who works with Know How Sewing Essential here in Australia, who is the Grace Distributor. And today I'm going to show you 5 of my favourite quilts. So the first quilt I'd like to show you is called Cameo Rose. I love all things vintage. This was based on an original quilt that came out in 1940-1950 called American Beauty. You bought it as a kit and then you had a choice of how you put it together. I bought one Cameo Rose because I put this big cameo around the centre of the rose. It's one of my favourite quilts. It's all hand-turned needle applique, and I absolutely adore long arm quilting, hand guided. So the whole quilt was hand guided quilting. I was very, very proud to have won 5 ribbons for this quilt. I won Best Traditional Applique, Best Hand Guided Long Arm. I got Judge's Choice, runner-up Best of Show, and it really was a joy. It took me about 2 years to do, which was fine, and I hand dyed all the fabrics. And I love it. So this is the one I'm proudest of. Okay, so a little bit how I got into patchwork and quilting was I had a great aunt named Auntie Olga, and she had a son who was studying in the United States. So she had the most amazing collection of magazines. And when she passed, she sent me a box, and in that box was all her treasured patchwork and quilting magazines. So this one I decided to make, and it was called Sedona in the Trees. And I decided to give it a little bit of a modern take and to start doing some very modern style quilting on it. Lots of in the ditch work, free motion pebbles, do it in brights. The really amazing thing was, after I finished the quilt, I decided I'd like to put it in the quilt show. But as it was not my original design, I wanted to get permission to display the quilt. And using the Facebook patchwork groups in Sacramento, I contacted a few of the groups, and it was amazing. One of the girls responded, and the original lady was in a nursing home in San Francisco now, and she sent me a beautiful letter saying that I was more than welcome to display and show the quilt. So I won a couple of ribbons, which I always believe were hers, and to think that it was 45 years old, the pattern, and to think it got to live another day. And as you can see, I love to put decorative bindings on quilts. I think it's the last thing that we do to our quilts, and we're so relieved to finally finish them. So this one is a 3D prairie point with a peeper here, and I love it. I just think it frames our quilts. Okay, so this is one of my favourites. I've always been inspired by other quilters. I did a fabulous class with Cindy Needham about quilting vintage tablecloths. So I was given a box by my mother with a heap of vintage tablecloths that belonged to my grandmother. So I have lovingly done 3 of these for all the girls in our family so that we all have a piece of history. And being inspired by Cindy, I did choose to do the Victorian feathers and the plumes. I backed the quilt onto some silk, and it's lovely to think that these are being lovingly used now instead of just being popped back in the cupboard, never to be seen again. So this is my Cindy Needham inspired quilt. Okay, so this quilt is called Lamare. It means bride in French. There's a little story behind this. My daughter became engaged in Paris in France. So, of course, I needed an excuse to make another quilt. So this is her wedding quilt. So it's French General Fabric by Moda. It is needle turned. It's all hand guided custom quilting. This is one of my favourites. My daughter does take a little bit after her mum, where she does like vintage. So I quilted it again in a vintage style theme. And the centre medallion with the basket of flowers is really to represent her bridal bouquet. And once again, of course, I put a curved piece binding on it with a handmade little red lace just to set it off, frame it. Okay, so the next quilt I want to show you is my double wedding rings quilt, which I actually think is on most quilters' bucket lists. It's the to-do. We always want to have a go at that. I was given the Liberty fabric as a Christmas present, and fortunately I had just enough to do it. And this for me was a fabulous challenge because I quilted the entire quilt using the QCT5, and it was amazing. I had so much fun by being able to use the marking tool to place the designs perfectly. I used the fabric comp to be able to do all these borders on the quilt because I added a 10-inch border, and I wanted to bring the designs out from the center of the quilt out into the border. And, you know, it really, really was fabulous. I used to roll it on and think, oh, wow, this is just looking better and better all the time. So I did this on my original Unique 21, and I'm very fortunate now I have a Pro, so I adore this quilt. It's one of my favourites. My daughter did decide that she would take Lamare as an engagement present and this one as a wedding present. I hope this inspires you to continue quilting and that you get joy. One of the things I would like to share is not every quilt is an award-winning quilt, but every quilt does give warmth, comfort, and joy. So thanks for watching.